How many people have made pillowcases? Okay, so I'll give you a quick tutorial. The reason you want to make these pillowcases is because they're so fun, so fast, so personal, and easy. And if you think ahead, you can personalize them. You can take chenille and you can apply chenille here and create a texture, right? You can add a little pocket on the inside for them to put their pajamas in. You can, I mean, there's just a million things you can do. Okay, so these are our pillowcases. And how this works is your top, and I have a free pattern for this. It looks like that. The top piece is cut 9 inches. The body is cut 27 inches. And the accent is cut 3 inches. This one does not have an accent because we put words on it instead. That is for a standard size pillowcase. If you need a king, the measurements are 12 inches for the top, 1 yard for the body, and the same 3 inches for the skinny. All right. Then what you do is you lay your top piece, your band, the 9-inch piece, right side up. After you've laid it right side up, and I have all this written out for you.
And this is with the fabric again.
With the fabric again, right side up. After you've done that, you take the body of the pillowcase and you lay it on top, matching raw edges on top, to lay it on top right sides up, all right sides up. Then when we're done with that, we will fold our 3-inch piece in half to create your band. You fold it in half and take its raw edges, and you've now put all raw edges up at the top, matching as best you can. Here, I always pin. Some people put in 3 or 4 pins to hold it. I pin the crap out of it. Because the minute I start to roll the body up, which is what I'm going to do, and you roll it up to meet the fold of the skinny piece, it's going to move. So I always pin it. Once you've rolled it to meet the top piece, you take the bottom of that initial 9-inch piece and you fold it over the top of everything, and now you have all your raw edges matching at the top. You see that? Then at this point, I take out all my other pins and I replace them as I go, making sure that none of my raw edges move. Okay? Got that? When you're done with that, you're going to sew across the top, and it's going to be sewn like this, using a 3/8 inch seam allowance again. The reason for the 3/8 inch seam allowance is a lot of people like to top stitch right here, using the stitch in the ditch foot. Run it right along the seam. Makes a beautiful top stitch. You'll sew right across here. The 3/8 allows it to get caught. Because inevitably when you're sewing, because you can't see and there's so many layers, you will wobble slightly. Even if you made a million. I sew over my pins, and anyone who's bought a machine from me is taught to sew over their pins. If you don't, you could have a little more wibble or wobble. But I've been sewing, I was 5 when I got my first sewing machine. I have sewn over my pins my entire life. All right, so when you're done, you have a tube. Then what you do is you turn your tube and you pull everything right side out. So all this is going to pull out of here like this. Got that? And why that's important is because now our seam is encased and we didn't have to press under any seam allowances. We did not have to lose our mind. We just had to line up all our raw edges and stitch. Okay. The next trick to know is we're going to put in a French seam. Because the other problem with pillowcases, right, is you wash them so much they fray in the wash. You can do an overcast, or you can put in a French seam. When we go to square things up, we always seem to put right sides together. So you would take this, you would go over to your cutting mat, You would line everything up, and then you would square it up, cutting off all your raw edges, cutting off your salvages, squaring it all up. While it's still wrong sides together, you're going to pin, hopefully, and then you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance on the 2 open sides, back stitching at the top. Don't ever forget to trim your corner before you turn so that you don't have excess bulk. But then you're going to turn your pillowcase wrong side out. You're going to press again so that you get all of these nice and open. No mouths, people. If you don't press these straight, they have little mouths on them. Because you haven't pushed them open all the way. Make sure your seam is open all the way. And the way I open my seam is I actually bring it forward and then use my fingertips to push it back. Because otherwise, you're going to have all sorts of a hot mess. Then what you do is you sew a 3/8 inch seam allowance this way, because it's larger than a 1/4. Happy math. It's larger than a 1/4, and it's going to ensure that your entire excess of fabric is kept into that seam allowance. And now there's no fraying when it's washed, and it can go anywhere, and it's beautiful. The other option is you can overcast, and overcasting is fine if you're teaching your grandkids how to make a pillowcase. Y'all, it's not enough. You can do a French seam. It looks nicer. It's more professional. And then you turn it right side out, push out your little points, and you have a pillowcase. A pillowcase. Each pillowcase individually, until you get accustomed to it, will take you an hour. It just will. Because you've got to prep it, you've got to sew it, you've got to turn it, pressing takes forever because you have to make sure that everything's little mouths are, closed up. I don't know any other way to talk about that. If somebody has a better way for me to talk about that, I'm happy to learn it. So, but if you know you're going to make a bunch of them, like it's going to be the gift holder and you're going to put a little bow on it and everybody gets a pillowcase with their crap in it that year. This is the first thing I teach kids how to sew on.
Really?
Yes, because it teaches them lots of pinning. It teaches them 3 different seam allowances. It teaches them how to trim, how to square, how to make sure your seams are open. It is a brilliant project for new sewers.
And let them go for a long period of time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then when they're done, it takes about an hour and a half with a child. And when they're done, they actually have instant gratification, so they go home with something. And I usually have them overcast seams because then they can really tear loose and, because you're following a blade again on the toe on the overcasting foot, and they just think that is great after being so attentive to just tear loose and let the machine go as fast as it wants to. Yep. And that, my dears, is pillowcases. Jessica's way. I don't know, maybe I added a little something for you. And for those of you who haven't made them that way, I hope you'll try it because it's super fast. These make great wedding gifts. Great wedding gifts. You can even go buy some nice lace and use that as your skinny piece. We have some art gallery fabrics, uses a cotton sateen for their cloth, their gray goods. So they're super soft. You can use their theme. We had to use frogs because that's my theme of life. And, they don't have to be cheesy. They can be super cute and they can be functional. You can monogram the newlywed couple on the cuffs, and they might put them on their beds with some throw pillows and never use them. But everybody's excited when they first get married about their new initials and their new everything. So, pillowcases. Pillowcases.